Hi, I'm Lou, and this is Lily Rowe. Thank you so much for tuning in to learn about Forest School. We're very excited about the series of videos. We are very excited, aren't we, Bubba? Because in this series, we're going to try and show you what Forest School is experientially, rather than just talking about it and explaining verbally what it is. It is a bit of an experiment. We're not sure how it will go, but in our minds, hopefully it will be more meaningful than just listening to the lectures about Forest School. So throughout this series, there's going to be a mix of kind of theory, chats, indoor stuff maybe, and also outdoor activities and experiences that we're encouraging you to take part in. Of course, everything is optional. Forest School is very much about choice. So if there's anything in the videos that you don't feel comfortable with doing, then please miss those out. That's fine. I'd recommend that you maybe have with you a notepad and pen so that you can kind of jot down any reflections or draw things or however you want to represent your kind of journey through it. That might be handy. And also when we go through the outside components, if you have got a smartphone where you're able to listen to the videos whilst you're out and about, you might want to take headphones because I've recorded those as if I was there so that you can listen to me directly. If you haven't got that sort of technology, then that's fine. Just listen to the videos beforehand and then jot down some notes about what we're asking you to do. As we go through the series, in each video I'll pop in the description box any links or references about the things that we're talking about or the activities that we're doing. Just to start with, we would like to say that there are some limitations with trying to do this over the internet through video. Forest School is all about modelling and facilitation and careful questioning and careful use of language, and of course we can't do that because we've not met you. We're here on the screen. We will try to do our best remotely, but normally Forest School would take place in a community of people with trained leaders, so we're going to do the best we can with what we've got. And of course nature is the best teacher, which I'm sure somebody much more wise than me once said. Also, just to point out, although the content of this series has been inspired by my face-to-face level 1 Forest School training course, this isn't designed to replace face-to-face quality Forest School training in any way. It's just designed to give you a bit of a beginner's guide to Forest School and hopefully feel some of the power that Forest School has. And then hopefully you might like to go and do your own Forest School training in the future if you've enjoyed doing this series. So to start, we thought we'd invite you to play a name game with us if you'd like to. And this is the sort of thing that might happen at the beginning of a Forest School programme. So often in the first few sessions, Forest School leaders might play name games with the group, particularly if they don't already know each other, of course. There might be a real reason to start to get to know each other's names. So there are lots of different types of games out there that you can play. So for example, there's one called the animal name game where So there is one, for example, called the animal name game, where you invite learners to think of an animal that begins with the same letter sound as their own first name. It could be a real animal, it could be an imaginary animal, and of course there's always choice at Forest School, so if they want a different animal that doesn't have the same letter sound, that's fine too. But you know, I'm Louise, and this is Lily Rowe. So we begin with the L sounds, so we could be lions, or leopards, or lizards, ladybirds, lacewings, leprechauns. We could be anything beginning with L. So I could be Louise Ladybird, and you could be Lily Rowe Lacewing. And that could be our animal names for the session. We can always change our animal names too. And of course, games like this, as well as helping people start to think about nature and the animals or plants and things within nature, I've noticed it also can help give a real fresh sense of identity. So maybe Louise Ladybird is a different Louise to Louise in the classroom. It can be a real opportunity for a fresh start. Another aspect to games like this is I found that they can be a bit totemic, like some cultures have totem animals or power animals. Different plants and animals have different meanings or energies associated with them. And I found sometimes when people adopt the name from nature, it can actually convey some of those energies with it. So, for example, if I was Louise Lion, maybe there's power or grace, or maybe not so much grace, but power and pride with being a lion, that maybe some of that might kind of come through with my name, or maybe not. So we invite you to play a game with us. So you might already feel a strong pull to a plant, an animal, or a piece of nature, and you might want to adopt that as your nature name. If so, that's great. If not, I invite you to think of a number now between 1 and 30. Think of a number, any number between 1 and 30, and that's going to help you get your nature name, because in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you're going to now see what your nature name is. So have a look on the list here, and the number that you were thinking of will give you your nature name for the duration of this series. Of course, it's completely up to you. You can change your nature name if you're not happy with it, but maybe that species of plant or animal has got a message for you. Maybe that's why you picked that number, perhaps. Who knows? Do feel free to share your nature names if you like in the comments section below, if you like to. Maybe if you're not familiar with that species maybe if you're not familiar with that plant or animal, you might like to find out more about it. Maybe you feel a curiosity about it. You might want to look it up on the internet or in books, perhaps. Of course, we're based in the UK, so the species here are UK or European species. If you're in other parts of the world, you might want to find a native equivalent, of which I'm sure there would be some similar species in your region. So now you have your nature name, I'd like to invite you to come on a journey with us. It's a journey through time. This is better. So I'd invite you now to think of a play memory from your own childhood. So cast your mind back to when you were a young child and think about any play memory that comes to mind. Just look from your child's eyes, from your child's self eyes. Cast your mind back, think of it, bring it as vividly as you can into your mind's eye. Hold that memory clearly in your mind for a moment whilst I ask you a few questions. So first of all, think about where you are in your memory. Just think about that. Where are you? Next, think about who you were with or who you weren't with, possibly. And then thirdly, think about how it feels in that memory. How did you feel? What emotions and feelings are coming to you through memorising that? So just hold on to that memory whilst we unpick this a little bit. I've asked lots of groups of people to do this before, asking about play memories. And there tends to be a pattern to what sort of memory comes to mind. So not with 100% of people, but with the majority. So firstly, where you were. And I'm guessing that the majority of you were somewhere outside in your play memory. It could be a garden, a park, perhaps a little wild space somewhere near your home, but you might have been outside, possibly seeking as well what I tend to refer to as the wild edges. You know, if you're in the garden, maybe you're at the bottom of the garden where the grass grew a bit longer, or behind the shed or something. So seeking wild edges. Again, this isn't 100% of people, but just a tendency to be the majority. Secondly, who you were with or not with. Now, I'm going to guess that for a large number of you, that the adults were either not present at all, or if they were present, they weren't much involved in what you were doing whilst you were playing. So perhaps if you're in your garden, maybe mum or dad were in the garden doing some gardening or something, but you were playing somewhere sort of separately without them being too much involved. And then thirdly, thinking about how you felt. Now, of course, play is going to be very personal to you, but some of the words I've heard describe these experiences before are things like, I felt free, I felt alive, I felt empowered, I felt comfortable. Perhaps it was a play thing that I did a lot of, or there was repetition, it was safe. Perhaps it was fun, it was exciting, perhaps it was risky, perhaps often in play we might do things that we aren't really allowed to do, maybe sometimes if the adults found out. So there was an element of risk perhaps there. So whatever those feelings are to you, there's no right or wrong. Now, the author Richard Louv has written a lot about natural play experiences, and he wrote a book called The Last Child in the Woods, Saving Our Children from Nature Deficit Disorder. And in this book, he kind of collated research from across the planet that related to childhood play experiences in nature. And he found that there was a sort of a pattern as well, that there was something very powerful about these sorts of experiences, playing in nature away from adults' gaze. And in this book, he also explores some of the issues currently affecting our children, like the crisis in health, you know, childhood obesity, childhood mental health, anxiety, depression disorders. Also things like sort of the labels that the learning needs or the behavioural needs labels that people might be given in schools, like ADHD and things like that. And in his book, he suggests that maybe there's a common thread to this because there's been a decline in natural play experiences for children over the years. And so he's suggesting that there might be a causal link here, that the absence of these sorts of play experiences might be linked to causing some of these problems of childhood, such as the health problems and the attention deficit disorder and things like that. Neuroscientists know that our memory centre in the brain is in the limbic system, which is kind of the mammalian part of the brain, the midbrain, and it's closely related to our emotion centres. So anything that has an emotional significance to us is much more likely to embed in our memory more deeply. So to me, when I ask this question of people to remember a play memory, it suggests to me that whatever memories are recalled quickly must be emotionally significant to people. And if that's the case, that these sorts of experiences are emotionally significant and now children might not be exposed to them, what does that mean that we're losing in childhood? You know, if there's emotional significance and we don't have that anymore, what are we missing out on now? And there's a huge range of reasons why parents or school teachers feel that they might not be able to facilitate these sorts of experiences for children. You know, increased traffic, stranger danger, increased technology, there's more lure to keep children inside rather than going out to play. There's a whole wealth of reasons why this might be, but Forest School is basically trying to give children, or even adults, we work with all ages, these sorts of outdoor nature-based play experiences, because we believe that they are emotionally significant and we believe they are a huge essential value to children and to adults. And so that is what we're trying to do. We're basically trying to do what should be a natural part of childhood. It's really ironic that we live in a society now where children are not getting these sorts of play experiences. In my world, there shouldn't be such a thing as Forest School. There should be no reason for it, because a healthy society would allow children to be doing these things anyway. So in my ideal world, I would do myself out of a job. There would be no such thing as Forest School. It wouldn't be needed, because it's just what children should do naturally and what they should be supported to do naturally by their parents and caregivers. Unfortunately, we don't yet live in that world. So Forest School is unfortunately a necessity, because in the words of Rachel Carson, the conservationist and author in the 60s, those who dwell amongst the beauties and mysteries of the earth are never alone or weary of life. Those who contemplate the beauty of the earth find reserves of strength that will endure as long as life lasts. Thanks for watching this session. We look forward to seeing you in the next one.